The unexpected attack. The peaceful colony on the distant planet of Titan III had never expected anything like this. It was a quiet place, full of people starting new lives far from Earth's busy cities. It was supposed to be safe, a peaceful haven in a vast galaxy. But that illusion was shattered when the first explosions hit. The Empire had come. Their ships were massive, dark, and powerful, descending on Titan III without warning. The colony's defenses had been weak, and before the inhabitants could react, the Empire's forces had already overwhelmed them. The news of the attack spread quickly, flashing across the communication channels of the galaxy. On Earth, the shock was felt everywhere. The attack on Titan III was just the beginning. Earth's government reacted with cold determination. They had tolerated the Empire's cruelty for too long, but this time, they had gone too far. The colony was not just an outpost. It was a symbol of humanity's expansion into the stars. And now, the Empire had attacked it, without provocation, without mercy. The message was clear. Humanity was not welcome in the galaxy, but Earth's response would be something the Empire never saw coming. They had underestimated the humans, and now, they were about to learn the cost of that mistake. Across Earth, the air was thick with tension. The news channels were filled with images of the burning colony, and every citizen felt the weight of the attack. It wasn't just a few lost lives. It was a declaration of war. Families, communities, and entire cities were watching, waiting for what would happen next. The military was already in motion. For years, humanity had prepared for the possibility of conflict with the Empire. The Vanguard, Earth's most powerful warship, was already on high alert. It was a symbol of Earth's strength, a mighty weapon capable of turning the tide in any war. But this wasn't going to be just one ship. Earth had more than 700,000 warships, each more powerful than the last. Ships of all sizes, from small but deadly cruisers to the massive capital ships, were scattered across the solar system. These were the ships of a united human fleet, and they were ready for action. For the first time in history, humanity's entire military power was about to be unleashed on the galaxy. The call went out to every fleet, every ship, and every captain. Earth was ready for retribution. The Empire had made a mistake. The humans would not just defend Titan III. They would make the Empire pay for every life lost, every drop of blood spilled. Captain Michael Harris, commander of the Vanguard, stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the vast expanse of space. His face was grim, but there was a spark in his eyes. He knew what was coming. The Empire had attacked one of their own. Now, it was time for the galaxy to understand just what humans were capable of. "This is not just about revenge," Harris said, his voice steady but full of determination. "This is about sending a message. We fight for our own. And we will fight until the Empire understands that humanity is not something they can just crush." The fleet was mobilizing. Every ship in the human arsenal was preparing to jump into action. They would not stop until every single Empire vessel was destroyed, until the galaxy understood that no one could hurt humanity without facing the consequences. "Prepare for launch," Harris ordered. "All ships, engage at maximum speed. We're going to show them the true power of Earth." The silence on the bridge was broken only by the hum of the ship's engines as the fleet began to move, ready to take vengeance. The Empire had attacked a human colony, and now humanity was coming for retribution. But what the Empire didn't know was that they were about to face a force stronger than anything they could imagine. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, it was fighting for its place in the galaxy. And as Earth's 700,000 warships began to leave the atmosphere, heading for the stars, one thing was clear. The Empire's reign of terror was about to come to an end. Humanity's wrath would be felt across the galaxy, and no one would be able to stop it. The galaxy had always known the humans as a growing presence, ambitious, driven, and fiercely independent, but never as a force to be reckoned with. That was about to change. In the quiet depths of space, The human fleet moved swiftly. Over 700,000 warships, each a marvel of engineering, accelerated into the void. Their engines burned bright against the backdrop of distant stars, a signal to all who saw them. This wasn't just a military response. It was a declaration. The Empire had made a grave mistake, and now the humans were on their way to correct it. On Earth, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. News channels broadcasted live updates, but the public knew little of the details. The government had closed the communication channels to ensure the enemy couldn't intercept their plans. All that mattered was that the fleets were mobilizing. Captain Michael Harris, aboard the Vanguard, stood at the helm, his hands clenched around the ship's command chair. The silent hum of the engines reverberated through the walls, a constant reminder of the power that lay within this massive vessel. The Vanguard was Earth's pride, capable of tearing through the strongest enemy defenses with ease, and now it was leading the charge. "Captain," said Lieutenant Sarah Renner, the ship's communications officer, her voice tight with the same tension that filled the air. "We've received new intel. The Empire has fortified their fleet in the Soren sector. They're expecting us, Captain." Harris turned slowly to face her, his eyes narrowing as he processed the information. The Empire's fleet was massive, and they had spent years preparing to crush the humans. They had underestimated Earth's resolve. They had assumed the humans would bow down, just like every other race they had conquered before. But they didn't know humanity. They didn't know the fire that burned in their hearts. "They might be expecting us," Harris said calmly, "but they don't know what's coming. We've fought harder battles than this. We've stood against impossible odds, and we've always come out victorious. This time will be no different." The bridge fell silent as the officers exchanged glances, each understanding the weight of his words. The tension in the air was thick with resolve. They were fighting for more than just the people of Titan III. They were fighting for every human colony that had been overlooked, every human life that had been disregarded. They were fighting for Earth itself. The moment had arrived. "We're within range of the Soren sector," said Commander Alex Turner, the ship's tactical officer. "We'll be entering their territory in 10 minutes. All ships, prepare for engagement," Harris ordered, his voice steady. "We've waited long enough. This is it." As the fleet entered the sector, they saw it, an armada of Empire ships. They were waiting, perhaps thinking they would be able to destroy humanity's forces with ease. But what the Empire didn't expect was the sheer determination of the human fleet. "Open fire," Harris commanded. The Vanguard's cannons roared to life, sending volleys of plasma fire into the heart of the Empire's fleet. The shockwaves from the blasts rippled through space, illuminating the darkness like a star being born. The Empire's ships returned fire, but it was too late. The humans were already upon them, and their strength was unmatched. One by one, Empire warships fell before the might of humanity's forces. But the Empire had more tricks up their sleeve. They had anticipated a fight, and now they were retaliating with full force. Their ships, though powerful, were no match for the sheer scale of the human fleet. Captain Harris watched the battle unfold with cold calculation. The Empire's attacks were fierce, but they lacked the unity and determination of humanity. The human fleet moved as one, every ship coordinated and laser-focused. The Empire's response was disorganized, almost as if they couldn't believe the humans had the strength to fight back. "Keep pushing forward," Harris shouted. "We need to break through their lines." The battle raged on, the backdrop of space lighting up with explosions and debris. Yet, amidst the chaos, humanity remained calm. The humans had something the Empire didn't: unity. They had something far more powerful than weapons and ships. They had each other. As the minutes ticked by, it became clear that the Empire was losing ground. Their ships were falling faster and faster, and their once confident fleet was beginning to falter. Humanity was pushing forward, and there was no stopping them. "We're winning, Captain," Lieutenant Renner said, her voice filled with awe. "They can't hold on much longer." "Keep up the pressure," Harris ordered, a fierce smile crossing his face. "This is just the beginning." And as the Empire's ships began to retreat, humanity's fleet pressed on, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. The message had been sent. The galaxy would know that humanity was not a species to be ignored. The Empire had attacked a colony, and now they were paying the price. But this battle was just one of many. Humanity's fleet had made its mark on the galaxy, and the Empire would never forget the day they learned what it meant to face the full might of humanity's retribution. The sounds of battle were deafening. The roar of plasma cannons, the scream of rockets, and the deep rumble of warships as they tore through space, all echoed across the cold expanse of the Soren sector. Humanity's warships, having already taken down several of the Empire's ships, pressed on with relentless precision. The human fleet was moving in perfect synchronization, each ship a well-oiled machine. But the Empire wasn't finished yet. They had more surprises in store. "Captain, we're detecting several smaller, faster ships emerging from the Empire's main fleet," Lieutenant Renner called out. "They're not the typical warships. They appear to be agile, designed for hit-and-run tactics." Captain Harris looked at the tactical display. The new Empire ships were fast, and they seemed to have a new strategy. Rather than fighting head-on, they were weaving in and out of the battlefield, attacking from unexpected angles. Their speed and unpredictability were making it harder for the human fleet to target them. "Bring the Vanguard about," Harris barked. "I want all turrets locked onto those ships. We can't let them harass our lines." The ship's engines groaned as the Vanguard turned sharply, aligning its weapon systems with the incoming threat. Harris' hand hovered over the trigger, eyes narrowing as he focused on the fast-moving enemies. He knew the Empire was desperate, but this tactic was starting to work. They were chipping away at the human forces, and it was time to stop them before they could do more damage. The Vanguard opened fire, its turrets letting loose a barrage of energy bolts. A few of the smaller ships were hit, but the others managed to dodge and retaliate. The human fleet was no longer in control of the skies, and the tide of the battle seemed to be turning against them. "Captain," Commander Turner shouted from the tactical station, "the Empire has activated their advanced defense systems. They're blocking our fire, and their small ships are getting closer." Harris gritted his teeth. The Empire had expected a straightforward fight, but humanity's resilience was already surprising them. Still, now the Empire was showing its true strength. Their defense systems were creating a near-impenetrable shield around their fleet, making it harder for the human ships to land a hit. "Don't let them push us back," Harris growled. "We can't afford to lose the momentum." His command crew worked quickly, adjusting to the changing battlefield. Despite their best efforts, the Empire's new tactics were proving to be effective. The human fleet was slowly being overwhelmed by the smaller, faster ships that seemed to be everywhere. But then, just as things looked dire, the call came through from an unexpected source. "This is Admiral Klein of the Titanic." The voice crackled over the comms. "We got a way to break through their defenses." Harris's eyes widened in surprise. "Admiral Klein, what are you suggesting?" "Prepare the EMP weapons," Klein continued. "The Empire's defenses are strong, but they rely on energy shields to stay intact. If we hit them with a pulse strong enough to overload their systems, we can break their defenses long enough to strike." Harris didn't hesitate. "Activate EMP weapons, all ships. On my mark. 3, 2, 1. With a blast that lit up the dark void of space, a wave of electromagnetic energy pulsed outward from the human fleet. It slammed into the Empire's defense systems like a sledgehammer hitting glass. The results were immediate. The Empire's shields flickered, weakened by the powerful pulse. "We've got a breach," Lieutenant Renner shouted, her voice filled with relief. "Their shields are down. Now's our chance," Harris commanded. "Fire everything we've got." The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Massive energy blasts filled the space as the humans launched an all-out assault. The Empire's once unbeatable defense systems had failed. Without their shields, the Empire's ships were vulnerable. The battle, once teetering on the edge of defeat, had shifted in favor of humanity. Empire ships exploded in bursts of fire and debris. The Empire's smaller, faster ships were torn apart as they tried to flee from the onslaught. The remaining warships of the Empire, realizing the battle was slipping away from them, attempted to regroup, but it was too late. Humanity's fleet was overwhelming them, and there was no escape. On the Vanguard, the crew could feel the shift. It wasn't just a change in the tides of war. It was a moment of realization. The Empire had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity's will to fight. "Keep the pressure on them," Harris shouted, his voice full of fire. "We're almost there. Push them back." The human ships were relentless, hitting their targets with precision. The Empire's ships could no longer maneuver, and their lines began to collapse. The battle that once seemed like a sure victory for the Empire had become a desperate fight for survival. "Captain," Lieutenant Renner called out, her voice filled with excitement. "It's over. The Empire's main fleet is retreating." Harris allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction, but he knew the fight wasn't truly over. They had won the battle, but the war was far from finished. The Empire might retreat now, but they would return, stronger, angrier, and more determined than ever. Humanity had made its statement, but the galaxy was a vast and unforgiving place. As the remnants of the Empire's fleet scattered into the stars, Captain Harris stood tall. The battle was won, but the war was just beginning. Earth had made its mark on the galaxy, and the entire universe would know that humanity was not to be taken lightly. And as the human fleet gathered in the aftermath, Captain Harris looked toward the future. The Empire would learn to fear the full might of humanity's retribution. The remnants of the Empire's fleet limped away, broken and battered, retreating into the far reaches of the galaxy. The void of space was still, but the humans knew it was only a matter of time before the Empire returned, angrier and more dangerous than ever. Captain Harris stood at the bridge of the Vanguard, his eyes fixed on the blinking lights of the tactical display. The victory had been significant, but it was just one battle in what promised to be a long and difficult war. His crew was exhausted, but there was no time to rest. The war was far from over. "Captain," Lieutenant Renner said as she approached him, "we've intercepted a message from the Empire. They're regrouping and planning a new offensive. This time, they're coming with everything they've got." Harris turned, his face hardening. "How much time do we have?" "Not much. They've already begun mobilizing their reinforcements," Renner replied. "If we don't strike first, they'll be ready for us. Then we hit them before they can fully regroup," Harris said, his voice steady and determined. "Prepare the fleet. We're not giving them a chance to catch their breath." As the Vanguard powered up, Harris felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. This wasn't just about one battle or one victory. It was about ensuring humanity's survival in the face of an enemy that had no mercy. The Empire had underestimated them once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. Harris wouldn't give them the chance. The human fleet, though battered, was ready. They had fought with everything they had and had come out victorious. But it was clear that the Empire's might was still a force to be reckoned with. They had only won the first round of a fight that would last for years. As the Vanguard jumped into hyperspace, Harris turned to Commander Turner. "We need to find their weak point. Their ships are strong, but we know they rely too much on their technology. If we can find a way to disable their fleet's power systems, we'll have the advantage." Turner nodded. "We've already started scanning their fleet for vulnerabilities. We'll know soon enough." The ship raced through the stars, headed toward the Empire's rallying point. The galaxy was vast, and time was short. Harris knew that speed and precision were the keys to their survival. If they could strike fast and hit hard, they could force the Empire into a position where they had no choice but to negotiate. But as they got closer to the Empire's base of operations, something unexpected happened. "Captain," Renner said, her voice shaking, We've detected an enormous fleet, far larger than we expected. It's not just a counterattack. They'd brought everything. Harris' stomach sank. The Empire was throwing everything they had into one massive push. They weren't just attacking. They were sending a message. We can't let them overwhelm us. Harris said, his voice tight. All ships, prepare for the worst. We're going in, full force. Let them know humanity isn't afraid to fight back. The human fleet entered the system, their warships ready for whatever the Empire could throw at them. The space around them seemed empty at first, a cold silence hanging in the void. But as they got closer, the vastness of the Empire's forces came into view. Ships that seemed to stretch on forever, a true testament to their power. We're outnumbered, Turner said, his voice grim. They've got us surrounded. Harris stood tall, his resolve unwavering. That doesn't matter. We'll use our speed, our numbers, and our will to win. Focus on their weak points. We strike fast, and we strike hard. The Vanguard and the human fleet leaped into action, charging forward into the heart of the Empire's forces. Plasma cannons and missile fire lit up the darkness of space as the battle raged on. The human fleet was smaller, but their tactics were superior. They attacked swiftly and decisively, focusing their fire on the weakest ships, cutting down the Empire's forces one by one. But the Empire's counterattack was relentless. Their larger fleet unleashed wave after wave of fire, sending countless missiles and energy blasts toward the humans. The human ships dodged and weaved, returning fire with deadly accuracy. It was a battle of speed against size, and the humans were determined to prove that their smaller, more agile fleet could hold its own. As the battle raged, Harris knew that this fight would determine the course of the war. If they lost here, it could be the end. The Empire's forces were formidable, but humanity's will to survive was even stronger. They had already defied the odds once, and they would do it again. But as the battle wore on, something unexpected happened. The Empire's fleet began to falter. Their larger warships were slow and clumsy, while the human fleet's speed allowed them to strike with precision. The Empire's once unbeatable advantage was slipping away. Captain, their ships are retreating. Renner shouted, her voice filled with surprise. Harris couldn't believe it. The Empire, who had seemed unbeatable only days before, was now retreating in disarray. Humanity had struck a blow they hadn't expected, and it was clear that the tide was turning. We've won this round, Harris said, a rare smile crossing his face. But we need to stay ready. The Empire will be back. And next time, they won't underestimate us. As the remnants of the Empire's fleet flooded into the stars, Harris looked to the future. This was just the beginning of a long, difficult war. But humanity had proven that they would fight for their place in the galaxy. And no one, not even the mighty Empire, could stop them. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. The remnants of the Empire's fleet limped away, their pride wounded, their power shaken. The human fleet had delivered a crushing blow, one the Empire hadn't anticipated. But despite their retreat, Harris knew the enemy would come back with everything they had. The Empire would not forget this defeat. They would retaliate. Captain Harris stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, staring at the star map. The victory had been significant, but it had come with a cost. His fleet had suffered losses, and many of their ships were damaged. They needed to repair and regroup, but the Empire's counterattack could come at any moment. Captain, Lieutenant Renner's voice broke the silence. We've received a transmission. It's from the Empire. Harris turned to her, his expression hardening. Put it through. The screen flickered, and a stern, cold face appeared. It was the face of an Empire commander, a woman who looked like she had been through 100 wars. Her eyes were full of anger and pride. This is Admiral Saren, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. To Captain Harris and the so-called Terran fleet, you've won a battle, but you've not won the war. Your defeat is inevitable. We will return, and when we do, we will make sure you regret this day. Humanity will be crushed, and your pathetic fleet will be nothing but a memory." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only a cold silence in its wake. Harris didn't flinch. He'd expected this. The Empire wouldn't take their defeat lying down. They'd be back, and they'd come with everything they had. "We knew this was coming," Harris said, his voice calm and controlled. "Prepare the fleet. We need to make repairs and get ready. When the Empire comes, we'll be ready." Renner nodded, a determined look on her face. "We'll move out immediately. The Vanguard and the other ships are in good shape, but we'll need to coordinate repairs with the rest of the fleet." Harris turned back to the tactical display. "Good. Let's move quickly. We don't have time to waste." Days passed in a blur of repairs, strategies, and brief moments of rest. The crew worked tirelessly, knowing that the Empire's counterattack was only a matter of time. They'd proven they could defeat the Empire's fleet once, but the next battle would be different. The Empire would come at them with full force, and they needed to be prepared for anything. "Captain," Commander Turner said as he entered the bridge, "we've received a report. The Empire is gathering its forces. They're coming in full force, more ships than we've ever seen before." "It's an armada." Harris's face darkened. "I knew they wouldn't stay down. We need to strike first. We can't let them gather their forces." "We've intercepted their movements," Turner continued. "They're moving towards the Delta Cluster, and it's heavily fortified. If we can catch them before they reach their full strength, we have a chance to stop them." "Then that's where we'll hit them," Harris said, his voice cold and decisive. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. We're going after them before they get their full fleet together." The Vanguard and the other human warships surged into hyperspace, their engines roaring to life as they sped toward the Empire's next stronghold. Harris could feel the weight of the upcoming battle on his shoulders. This was it. If they didn't stop the Empire here, they might not get another chance. As they exited hyperspace, the sight that greeted them was nothing short of overwhelming. The Empire's fleet stretched across the sky, an unending wall of warships that blotted out the stars. It was a force unlike anything humanity had ever faced. But Harris wasn't intimidated. If anything, he felt more determined than ever. "Commander Turner, take us in," Harris ordered. "We need to break through their lines and disrupt their formations." The human fleet surged forward, weaving through the Empire's ships with incredible speed. The Empire's ships were massive, their weapons powerful, but they were slower and less agile than the human fleet. The Vanguard and the other Terran ships darted in and out of the enemy formations, attacking with precision, focusing their fire on the Empire's weakest points. The battle was chaos. Laser fire and explosions filled the void of space as the two fleets collided. The Empire's ships retaliated with devastating force, but the humans were quick and relentless. Every time the Empire thought they had the upper hand, the Terran fleet countered with a precision strike that left them scrambling. "We're holding our own," Renner shouted over the comms. "Their formations are breaking apart." Harris nodded, his eyes fixed on the battle. "We need to keep the pressure on. Don't let up. We can't afford to give them any time to regroup." The Vanguard launched another barrage of missiles, targeting the Empire's flagship. The missile storm tore through the flagship's shields, hitting it directly and causing massive damage. The Empire's fleet began to falter, their once unified force breaking apart under the constant barrage of human fire. But just as victory seemed within reach, the Empire deployed their secret weapon, an enormous battleship, larger than anything humanity had ever seen. It was heavily armored and bristling with weapons, a true behemoth of destruction. "Captain," Renner said, her voice tense, "we've got a problem. The Empire's superweapon has just entered the battlefield. It's taking out our ships one by one." Harris clenched his fists. This was the Empire's last play. If they didn't stop this ship now, the battle could be lost. "We're not backing down," Harris said, his voice fierce. All ships, focus fire on that battleship. We take it down, or we die trying." The battle raged on as the humans focused everything they had on the superweapon. Missiles, lasers, and every available weapon fired at the monstrous battleship. It took all the strength the human fleet could muster, but finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Empire's superweapon exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The Empire was broken. For now. But Harris knew this victory was only temporary. The Empire would regroup, rebuild, and come again. But humanity had shown them something. The will to survive was stronger than anything the Empire could throw at them. "Prepare for the next wave," Harris said, his gaze hard. "This war is far from over." The Empire had been dealt a devastating blow, but Harris knew the war was far from over. The human fleet had pushed the invaders back, but the Empire's retaliatory strike was inevitable. They would rebuild, and when they came, they would come with everything they had. The human fleet was scattered across multiple sectors, recovering from the battle, repairing the damage done, and resupplying for the inevitable next wave. The victory against the Empire's superweapon had been monumental, but it was only one battle in a much larger war. The Empire wouldn't stop, not until they had crushed humanity's will to fight. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Captain Harris stood tall, staring at the star maps. His crew was busy, working diligently to prepare for the battles ahead. He knew the next battle would be the ultimate test. The Empire wouldn't show mercy, and humanity couldn't afford to falter. "Captain," Lieutenant Renner's voice interrupted his thoughts. "We've received some troubling news. The Empire's fleets are massing in the Zeta system. They're preparing for a major offensive." Harris clenched his jaw, his mind racing. "So it begins. We believe they gathered every available ship they have left," Renner continued. "This will be their final push. If we don't stop them now, they'll overrun our defenses." Harris nodded grimly. "We don't have a choice. We take the fight to them before they can hit us first." "Understood," Renner said, already moving to relay the orders. Harris turned back to the tactical display, his thoughts focused. He knew the Empire's armada would be larger and more coordinated than ever before. This wasn't just another raid or a skirmish, it was a full-scale invasion. The Empire had been beaten before, but they weren't the kind to accept defeat. This time, they would come for revenge. As the human fleet mobilized, Harris gathered his officers for one final briefing. Commander Turner, Lieutenant Renner, and the rest of the senior staff gathered around the central holographic table, the map of the Zeta system glowing brightly in the center. "We're going to make our stand in the Zeta system," Harris began, his voice calm but firm. "The Empire has everything they have left in that system, and we have to take them out before they can gather even more ships. We can't let them regroup." Turner nodded. "We've already scouted the system. The Empire has set up a blockade around the main planet, and they've got a massive fleet in position." "It's a trap, Captain." Harris raised an eyebrow. "A trap. They want us to attack," Renner chimed in. "They've set up a defensive perimeter around the planet. If we charge in, they'll surround us and cut us off from any retreat." The room fell silent as the weight of their words sank in. Harris knew the Empire was cunning. They had a strategy, but humanity had something else: the will to win, no matter the odds. "Then we don't charge in. We outsmart them," Harris said, a hint of determination in his voice. "We're not going to fight their battle. We'll make them fight ours." The plan was set into motion. The fleet split into smaller strike groups, designed to strike at the Empire's weak points, confuse their lines, and keep them off balance. They would use hit-and-run tactics, draw the Empire into a trap, and force them to fight on humanity's terms. It wasn't a plan that guaranteed victory, but it was humanity's best shot. As the fleet entered the Zeta system, Harris watched the stars stretch around him. This was it, the final showdown. His heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the weight of responsibility. The stakes had never been higher. "Captain," Renner's voice broke through his thoughts. We're in position. The Empire's fleet is on the other side of the system, in a defensive formation. It's just like we thought. They're waiting for us to make the first move. Then let's make it, Harris said. Signal the fleet. Let's show the Empire that humanity won't back down. The Vanguard and its allies surged forward, their engines roaring to life. The Empire's fleet loomed large in the distance, its ships like looming shadows against the black void of space. The trap was set, and Harris was determined to make it work. The first volley of missiles tore through the Empire's outer defenses, detonating in brilliant bursts of light. The human fleet was already moving, darting around the Empire's ships with speed and precision. The Empire was slower to react, and their formations began to falter as the humans struck fast and hard. But the Empire had prepared for this. They quickly regrouped, launching counterattacks that sent shockwaves through the human fleet. The humans were outnumbered, and the Empire's firepower was overwhelming. Ships exploded in the darkness of space, their wreckage drifting helplessly. Harris watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Vanguard. He could see the Empire's ships starting to move, surrounding the human fleet. They were closing in, trying to trap them just like they had planned. Now, Harris muttered, now we turn the tide. The human fleet executed its final maneuver. Using their advanced communication systems, they coordinated a simultaneous hyperspace jump to flank the Empire's forces. The jump was risky. One wrong move, and the fleet could be lost. But it was their only shot. The fleet reappeared on the other side of the Empire's forces, catching them off guard. The Empire's ships were disoriented, their lines broken. The human fleet hammered into them with everything they had left. The battle was chaotic, explosions lighting up the darkness, laser fire crisscrossing across the void. Harris watched as the Empire's ships began to falter. Their once mighty fleet was now disarrayed, their ships under constant bombardment from all sides. The humans had won the first part of the battle, but the real fight was still to come. Keep pushing forward, Harris ordered, his voice sharp. We have them on the ropes. We can't let up now. With a final, concentrated strike, the human fleet broke through the Empire's defenses. The Empire's flagship, a massive battleship that had been the core of their strength, was destroyed in a brilliant explosion, signaling the beginning of the end for the Empire's invasion. The Empire had been defeated, for now, but Harris knew that this victory was hard-earned. The war was far from over, but humanity had shown that it could stand against the greatest threats the galaxy had to offer. As the remnants of the Empire's fleet retreated, Harris knew one thing for certain. The Empire would never forget this defeat, and neither would humanity. The fight was far from over, and humanity had proven that it would fight until the very end. Prepare for the next battle, Harris said, his voice resolute. The war is not over. The final echoes of the battle had faded, and the debris of the Empire's once mighty fleet now drifted in the cold silence of space. The human fleet, though battered and bruised, stood victorious. Captain Harris gazed out from the bridge of the Vanguard, watching as the wreckage of the Empire's ships slowly spread out across the void. His heart raced with a mix of triumph and unease. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. Captain, Lieutenant Renner's voice broke the silence. We've received a transmission from the Imperial High Command. They're offering terms for surrender. Harris didn't immediately respond. His mind was racing. The Empire had been shattered, their greatest warships destroyed. But he knew this was not the time for complacency. The Empire was ruthless, and while their fleet had been defeated, they still had resources, and more importantly, a burning desire for revenge. They would never let this go. We'll need to hold our ground, Harris finally said. But this could be a turning point for us. If the Empire is willing to negotiate, then we can finally end this war before it escalates even further. The crew on the bridge exchanged uncertain glances. The idea of peace after such a fierce conflict seemed almost impossible. But the reality was undeniable. The humans had won, and now the power was in their hands. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," Harris continued. "We'll hold position here for now. No one leaves the system until we're sure the Empire's intentions are real." As Harris turned back to the view of space, the reality of what had just happened began to settle in. For the first time in years, humanity had a real chance to end the war on their terms. But it wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about securing a future where Earth and its colonies could thrive without the looming shadow of the Empire over them. The following days were filled with tense negotiations. The Empire, weakened but not broken, had accepted the terms of humanity's ceasefire. Their fleets were retreating to their home systems, and the humans were granted a precarious peace. Captain Harris, though wary of the Empire's true intentions, couldn't ignore the potential for a new chapter in human history. But even as the ceasefire took hold, the galaxy had begun to change. Earth's victory had sent shockwaves through the galactic community. The smaller alien factions, once fearful of the Empire's dominance, now saw humanity as a rising power. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and humanity was no longer the underdog. They were the ones in control. On Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. People everywhere were proud of the fleet, proud of their soldiers, and proud of their resilience. It was a time for unity and reflection on what had been accomplished. But Captain Harris knew that peace would not be easy. The galaxy was a vast, dangerous place, and while the Empire had been humbled, new challenges would rise to take its place. Harris sat in his private quarters aboard the Vanguard, staring out at the stars once more. He had spent years fighting, leading, and making decisions that affected the lives of thousands. And yet, for all that he had been through, one thing was certain: humanity was not done yet. The Empire had attacked, but humanity had stood its ground and shown that it would never be crushed. Now, it was time to build. But before they could truly begin rebuilding, there was still the matter of the ceasefire. The Empire may have backed down, but Harris knew their thirst for revenge would not easily be quenched. Peace would be fragile. One wrong move could plunge the galaxy back into chaos. "Captain," Commander Turner's voice broke through the silence. "We've received reports from our forward scouts. There are signs of Imperial fleets regrouping on the fringes of their territory. They may be planning something." Harris sighed. The war was never truly over. The Empire might have pulled back for now, but they weren't done yet. They would return, and humanity would be ready. "Prepare the fleet for any eventuality," Harris ordered, his voice calm but resolute. "We won't be caught off guard again." The message was clear. Humanity had earned a moment of peace, but it would not be a peaceful galaxy. They would have to continue fighting to protect everything they had gained. As the days went by, Earth's leadership met to discuss their next steps. Diplomacy was essential, but Harris knew from experience that diplomacy alone wouldn't ensure survival. The Empire had shown its true colors. The next time they came, humanity needed to be ready, not just to defend, but to strike when the opportunity arose. The humans had won, but the galaxy was still full of threats, and Captain Harris would be damned if he allowed humanity to fall into complacency. They had earned this moment, but the next battle could be just around the corner. The fleet readied itself. Earth's 700,000 warships were now a symbol of humanity's strength, their resolve, and their defiance. The Empire might have attacked, but humanity had struck back with a vengeance. The war wasn't over, not by a long shot. As Harris gazed out into the stars once again, he knew one thing: humanity had changed the course of history. The galaxy would never forget Earth's defiance. The fight would continue, but humanity would be ready for whatever came next.